Here's a segment from a recent Gun Talk radio episode. You can listen to all the Gun Talk radio podcasts however you tune in, or check out guntalk.com for more. In the discussion of use of firearms for self-defense, get an awful lot of puffery, a lot of chest thumping. We're all men here. I'm going to do this. Shoot them all, let God sort them out, kind of nonsense. It's worse now with the internet, because it used to be just people yakking, at the gun counters, and now it's bigger audiences, if you will, and people blowing themselves up, making themselves look important by strongly stating opinions that turned out to be nonsense, but nobody can or will challenge them on it. One of the guys who has always challenged that, who actually is a clear thinker, has been covering this for the better part of a half century, joins us right now. He is trainer, competitive shooter, martial arts guy, and noted author, as well as a courtroom expert, Massad Ayoob. Mas, how you doing?
Doing well, Tom. It's good to be back on your show.
It is good to have you here. You got the new edition, second edition of this outstanding book, Deadly Force: Understanding Your Right to Self-Defense. I highly recommend it to anybody who has a gun for self-defense, whether you carry it or you have it at home.
The audio version just came out last week, too. It's my first one, so I've always had a good face for radio. We'll see if I have a good voice for radio. Fine with that.
All right. And looking at this book and thinking about the things, because you've always been the one that actually, sometimes you really tick people off when you tell them things they don't want to hear, like maybe you shouldn't be trying to shoot everybody who makes you angry. Things like that. It's like, but I think a lot of it comes from your hundreds of hours as an expert witness in courtrooms, and watching what prosecutors do, and watching how sometimes otherwise good people get themselves into real trouble by not fully understanding the laws. Does that kind of describe the situation?
Oh, it does. That gives me a flashback to this past week. I testified on Thursday in an attempted murder trial in Florida with the Florida 10-20 life rule. He was looking at 25 years to life. He had put 345 rounds through a bad guy who was attacking him and his mother, but he was seen as having shot an unarmed man, and he went through a 5-year ordeal that ended on Friday, when the jury that heard the whole story took 1 hour to acquit on all charges. And one of the jurors later told one of the defense lawyers, the only thing I would have done different would have been to make sure he was dead.
Holy cow!
Which, by the way, is one of the things you don't want to be doing.
Well, exactly. I was just going to say, and that's one of the things we hear people say. Well, make sure there's only one story being told. Be sure to finish them off. Yada yada. That kind of stuff can send you to the state penitentiary for a long time, and that's kind of what I want to talk to you about. Is we have many states have passed the Castle Doctrine and the Stand Your Ground laws, and I think they are roundly misunderstood by a lot of people. I always explain it to say, look, none of those changes the criteria under which you can justifiably shoot someone in self-defense. That doesn't change, and just saying the words, I was in fear for my life, is not enough unless you can get 12 people to agree with you. Why don't you take that as your launching pad and explain?
Sure. Basically, the universal rule is for the armed citizen, to use deadly force, you have to be in a situation of immediate, otherwise unavoidable danger of death or great bodily harm to yourself or to another person. The other person has to create that situation with 3 simultaneously present criteria. He has to have ability, the power to kill a cripple. A deadly weapon is obvious. Less obvious is one thing we had this week to deal with, disparity of force. He is much larger and stronger than you. There are multiple opponents to deal with. You are a female being attacked by a male as a general rule. Or the one we had to deal with this week, it goes with what's called the eggshell skull rule. By eggshell skull, it means the particularly vulnerable victim. If you're the handicapped person being attacked by the able-bodied, the likelihood of a vicious attack killing or crippling you is so great that it becomes the equivalent of a deadly weapon, and it warrants your recourse to a deadly weapon in self-defense. We had at least two prosecutors, one who had spent a full career, one probably 6-7 years into her career, law school graduates who had passed a bar exam who had not grasped that, and that's why that terrible unjust case wound up costing this man 5 years of his life hanging under the sword of Damocles.
Wow.
Second, you have to have the opportunity factor present. The person has to be close enough to kill you with whatever power he has. He's within range if he has a gun. He can reach you for physical contact quickly if he has knife, club, or bare hands. And with the bare hands, remember, the FBI stats show every year more murders are committed with bare hands and stomping feet than are committed with all rifles of all kinds, including the dreaded AR-15.
Right.
Finally, there has to be a manifest intent element. His words and or actions manifest what a reasonable person would consider to be an intent to kill you or cripple you. All three of those things have to be present to justify that situation, and you cannot have been the initial aggressor. A whole lot of folks need to purge their vocabulary and their middle finger action in things like the road rage incidents or the parking lot arguments, any of which can escalate. The armed citizen has to remember they're held to what's called a higher standard of care. The reason is they're the one who knows a deadly weapon is present, and they know that any argument that escalates could escalate to a killing situation. So
Hey,
those are some of the things.
Let me ask you something here. You obviously are like a top-level competitive shooter. You are a law enforcement officer. You teach this stuff. You're very good at it. I think about you, and then I think about our dear, recently departed friend, Ed Head, who in a class, border patrolman, he says, I will beg someone to let me survive. I will do whatever it takes. He said, now, if I have to, I'll shoot him. He said, but if I can get out of it by just falling on my knees and begging and crying and doing whatever I have to, basically what I was getting from him and what I think I'm getting from you is that even if you're very good at this, even if you know you can succeed, the smart move often is trying to find a way out of it so you don't have to use a gun.
Yeah, Ed was retired from law enforcement, as I am now, and we were speaking not to the person who was tasked with chasing down bad guys and overpowering resistance and taking them into custody, but the ordinary citizen. What you have to understand is that in some situations, if it's taken wrong or someone for political reasons or reasons of revenge twists the facts, you and your family are going to be in a nightmarish situation. Look at George Zimmerman, who was acquitted a year and 4 months after his shooting in 2012, and now a decade later has had to change his name and live in hiding because so many people bought the false trope that he was the racist who had hunted down the poor little kid to satisfy his bloodlust. Just last year, in 2 trials that I can think of, the legal fees for the defendant went 6 figures, and one of those was $300,000. We won acquittals for both of them. We won acquittals, and there are people on the internet stupid enough to say, well, they were acquitted, so everything's okay. That is kind of like going up to a cancer patient, their cancer survivor, and saying, well, you're still alive, so cancer is nothing to worry about. They'll want to punch you in the mouth for that, and you can't blame them. Right. These things can be absolute ordeals. Avoidance is the primary victory. Once the shooting starts, all it is damage control. You're just reducing the volume of danger. You're reducing the likelihood of you being killed. It still ain't going to be a fun trip.
Check your anger, check your middle finger, check your voice, find a way out of it. If there's a way to avoid it, do. If there's a way to get out of it, even if I tell people, look, I will apologize for things I never did. If they say, oh, I'm sure sorry, I am so sorry, I didn't understand that, I didn't mean to do that. Whatever it takes to get out of it without getting into confrontation, I am willing to do that because I know how badly it can go at the end of the road.
Amen, brother. It's if you can't bear to say that you did something you didn't do, say, I don't know what I did to offend you, but I'm sad that you're offended, and I'm leaving now.
Right, and then find a way to get away, get some distance. There you go. Massad, I know that in fact, one of my neighbors here just signed up for your class. You're coming to Idaho. You might just talk a little bit about your training and the classes that you take around the country.
Sure. We do 20 to 40-hour programs to start. We have 4 different levels of training. At the first level, there's a 20-hour class in just deadly force and a 20-hour class in just defensive shooting. Put those two together, they're our 40-hour class, which is about the best I can do for folks in a week. It'll be pretty intensive, usually goes a little over the 40 hours. We do those nationwide, and you can check our website, MassadAyoobGroup.com. That's MASSADAYOOB group.com. If that is not in the cards, I've got several books out, all available from Amazon. Most recently, the one you mentioned, the updated version of the Deadly Force book, now available also on audio, and they can get that at GunDigestStore.com.
I'm going to press. I got to keep you on for one more minute. Quick question.
Sure.
A lot of people, they say, we can't all get Massad Ayoob to court for our court date. What about the insurance programs that are available out there that help you with legal defense?
The one that I work with is not insurance. It's a mutual support group, Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. Go to armedcitizensnetwork.org. It's probably the least expensive of them. We've done almost 30 cases now, all with absolutely the best success that the circumstances allowed. We've got almost a $4 million defense fund now. And to get, if you go to that website, as a public service, Gila Hayes, one of the principals, publishes the ACLDN newsletter that goes back years in the archives, and it's a treasure trove of information on the legal elements of self-defense.
I can echo that. That is absolutely true. It's armedcitizensnetwork.org. I have been a paying member for many years myself, and I can back that up. All right, I ran way over time, but I always do with you, my friend. Listen, thank you so much. We can never stop talking because we're just interested in this. But man, you are a treasure trove of information. I appreciate your time.
So are you, brother, and thanks for all that you do.
Well, you take care. We'll see you a little bit further up the creek. Massad Ayoob, check it out. Massad Ayoob Group, and the group he talked about, ArmedCitizensNetwork.org. I believe in it to the point where I got membership for myself and for my wife.